Hello, everyone. I love to see people in the chat already saying hi. So hi back at y'all as well. Somebody said this sounds exciting. I'm gonna tell you for sure is somebody said what's the name of the music? I don't know. I got it from Canva, but it's super awesome. But if this is your first time watching, this is Open Source Friday, where we chat with an open source maintainer about a project they're working on, or sometimes it's a core contributor. I'm super excited because today's guest is Jessica, and I will let her introduce herself.
Oh, thank you. Hi, everyone. Really nice to see so many of you in chat already. Yeah, so my name is Jessica. I am in my 20s. I'm currently a student, computer science student living in Denmark. So that's my quote unquote full-time thing. And then I'm about to do an internship, and I'm also, as was said, an open source maintainer.
Awesome. Sorry, I was trying to like while you yourself repost on Twitter that we're live, but that is
Yes.
awesome to hear that you are doing all of that. And I want to is it okay if like before I ask what your project is, am I able to or are you okay with me just quickly pivoting and asking like how are you able to do all of this stuff including being a college student, an intern at Uber, and a maintainer of an open source project?
Yes. Yeah, like doing that, and then also now getting into public speaking. How do I do it all? That's a good question. I think I don't know. I just kind of I've been coding for a long time, so I don't need to invest so much time into my studies, which is a terrible idea. Always, you do your studies, but I learn much more by doing my open source projects, and apparently some people find that interesting enough to where I can go to companies and say, "Hey, look at the things I built," and they'd actually take me serious and give me an interview. And now I'm here, so that's a thing.
That's okay. First of all, that's really smart that you're leveraging open source to kind of build your career and help you to land jobs and stuff like that. Because that's true. Now people see that you have like an applicable working like project in the world that other people are using, and it shows that yeah, like I can work with different complexity. I can work with different teammates, and in fact, I can manage teammates. Because I in the session we were in earlier, someone mentioned that an open source maintainer is kind of like an engineering manager. So that's really awesome. And yeah, I wish I was like you because I only started to code like in 2018, and I need all the studying I can get. So my next question to you is like, what exactly is your project? What's Pypandoc, if I'm saying it right?
Yes, you are. So Pypandoc is very Pythonic, but also a very thin wrapper around a program called Pandoc, which is in itself a document conversion tool. What Pandoc is a tool that allows you to convert um, specifically like basically any formats to Markdown and back. So you can have like a Word document, you can want to convert it to Markdown, then edit it by writing Markdown, which we all love, and then convert it to PDF, back to Word, to HTML, and so on. And this makes it, Pypandoc makes that easier to do in Python, where you don't have to focus on like command line arguments, and you don't have to focus on if you're typing stuff correctly, because it has a lot of verification and sandboxing built into Pypandoc, where it'll tell you, hey, this is not a valid format. It kind of gives you, it saves you from all the pitfalls, so you just can do the conversions that would normally be a massive like 2 or 3 lines. You can do in one simple line, as an example.
That sounds really useful. That sounds like very, very useful. And I'm just like, um, how, and I have this question here for maybe folks who like they are not experienced with web development at all. And then maybe
Mm.
like it does sound pretty like simple and straightforward to me, but maybe are you able to break it down even a little bit further on like if someone was like 5 years old, like what exactly is Pandoc, and then how does Pypandoc play a role in it? I feel like your last answer just said it, but I guess I'm just
Yeah.
asking to expand on it more. I don't know.
Take whatever document you get, put it into Pypandoc, and it will use Pandoc to convert it to a document you love even more.
Okay,
That's simpler to use,
simple,
or like
perfect.
simpler to write. Yes.
Perfect. And then like how did you even get I titled this maintaining open source projects as a student. How did you get involved in Pypandoc and to the point that you're now maintaining it? I think that's an interesting trajectory where like maybe some students or even really experienced developers are like, I don't even know how to start contributing. So how did you get to this point that you're maintaining a whole project?
Great question. So what I originally did was I made a program targeted primarily at the blind and visually impaired community that would help them convert um, files with complex structures, such as a Word document that can be pretty difficult for a screen reader to pick up, into an easy to format and easy to read um, format, which was Markdown. And I love Python. So I searched around, Google around, and I found Pypandocs, which kind of became the cornerstone in this program called VisCon, which is derived from Visual Connect. That's how I got my start into just using Pypandoc. And as that kind of grew, the VisCon grew as a project, I kind of got to know every little nook and cranny of Pypandoc, both on the coding side and on the documentation and testing side, because Pypandoc has to keep up with the releases of the developer tool it's wrapping. Um, and I kept raising issues, and I kept making pull requests and asking for new features. I was very annoying, probably. Um, and at one point, I had an email, not even on GitHub, but an email chat with the at that time current maintainer, where I asked, um, because he didn't seem to work anything on it himself, and he seemed to have moved away from Python altogether. So I just asked a very naive question: Hey, if you're not going to update it anymore, and you want the like responsibility taken off of you, I would be happy to take over maintainership, because I really use it, and I can see that other people also use it, which I will totally get back to. And he was like, "Yeah, I actually don't want the responsibility anymore. You can have it. Just here, all the maintainership. You can remove me from everything, like permission wise, with publishing and all that." And that's how I got handed a project I used for as a component in my project, and now I maintain Pypandoc.
That's amazing. I think it's your initiative that's amazing because I feel like a lot of people might have just sat there and been like, "Dang, I wish I could be the maintainer," but they wouldn't reach out and ask. And sometimes it's just like the simple, like just go ahead and ask, "How can I help? How can I be involved? Or how can I maintain this?" And I like how it's like the trajectory was like you started off as someone who was using it, passionate about it, then you wanted them to make improvements. So you started getting involved in creating issues, asking questions, making pull requests, and then you started contributing, and then you're like, wait a minute, this maintainer is not he's not doing that much anymore. So I love that. And before we go into the demo, I guess as a preview, somebody asked Newland Lotsu. I hope that I'm pronouncing this right, but they said, can Pypandoc convert from PDF? I guess I don't know to what is the question.
To everything else,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Yes, Pypandoc can convert from PDF by using either a LaTeX engine that's installed on the machine or with a third-party package, which I, funnily enough, also created because I needed to be able to bundle a LaTeX engine into my program, which made another wrapper in Python possible. So yes, the short answer is yes. The complicated answer is yes, but there's a few extra steps. But yes.
Okay, that's good to know. And then one other question that I thought was interesting before you go into the demo from Twitch user learner0418. They're always tuned in, so I always appreciate them. They said, is the original idea for the visual impaired active?
So it's the original idea still active, kind of. I am rebuilding it mostly because there are some things with the previous one that I didn't like as much. Mostly it was closed sourced.
Okay.
But it's being rebuilt and it's going to be open source in the sense that it's probably going to be moved to a separate like GitHub org and have hopefully a lot more community around it. And again, it started out as a thing for visually impaired and blind people, but apparently a lot of people use Markdown, not just developers, journalists use it, even people that is just tired of well, Word and its million keystrokes. You can basically write a huge, nice, professional written document in without ever leaving your keyboard. Like I've written many of my um, school papers in that in what is essentially VisCon concept demo, and no one could tell the difference.
Interesting. I had no clue that non-developers were using Markdown, but that makes sense. Okay,
Yeah.
let's. I'm ready to. If you're ready to move into the demo, because I'm excited to see how this platform works. Are you good with it?
I have a few extra points I would like to make.
Oh,
Just
definitely.
so a funny little story tidbit was after I took over Pypandoc and modernized it for Python 3, which that was back when that was a thing, and still is, but like back when everything had to drop Python 2.7 support. I started on Python 3, and then I fell in love with these badges you can have on your README, and I was like, okay, cool. I want to show support. Like I want to show the version support. I want to show test coverage. And then I wanted to show, okay, how many people actually use this? Because I figured, okay, there must be someone else but me that uses it, but it wasn't really trackable anywhere. I, funnily enough, a week later got an email from the package index saying, hey, your project is in the top 1% of most downloaded over a period of the last 6 months. So we have assigned it as a critical project. It's like, critical project?
Whoa.
1%. And then I was like, okay, let me look at that the downloads thing. It sits somewhere around 3 to 4.5 million per month.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh.
And that's one of the numbers I used for the companies that I've applied for say, hey, I have a project, it's very popular, it's all this I just said, because they really like numbers and like results. So that worked.
That's a good tip for anyone who is applying for a job right now. Yeah, recruiters and hiring managers, they want to know the percentage. They're like, okay, you made this, but who is it impacting? Like how are people leveraging it? So that's a good tip. Thank you. But
Yes.
also, that's crazy, like that your project has that many downloads. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I got really I was really surprised. Like, is this all time? And then I looked into the API I was using. Look, this is like a period of 3 months.
Wow.
So yeah, that took me back a bit. And then people kept asking for bundling Pandoc with Pypandoc. I was like, fine, we'll make a separate package from that, which also has seen moderate traction. Like if you are in an environment where you're not allowed to install anything, that was mainly where people said, "Hey, we need Pandoc bundled into this." And that as soon as I made that, that also got a huge boom in downloads because apparently there's a lot of people that can't just install stuff on their systems.
Yeah, interesting. I didn't even think of that as an additional use case.
Mhm. Yep.
Cool. And we can sorry, and I know you said you had a couple things to say before the demo. Was that the only thing? Okay, cool.
I think that's the only thing. Then yeah.
Cool. I shared your screen, so we're ready.
Super. Okay, so um, what you see here is a simple Python code that takes in a markdown string. The string can come from anywhere. It can come from, well, a web request, from scraping. It can come from literally anywhere. It doesn't even have to be um, like Markdown, but this example, I'm using Markdown, but it could literally be any format, both text or binary. Like you open a Word document or open a PDF or yeah, scrape HTML from a website or something. But in this example, I've just gone with the very simple approach of using Markdown and converting that to HTML. And
Mm-hmm.
then we have the conversion where we tell it to use the Markdown text. We have both in Pypandoc, we have for converting from text, which we're using here. We can convert from a file where Pandoc takes Pypandoc takes like all the heavy lifting of opening the file, verifying the format. So you don't even have to specify what format it is. If you convert a file, it'll just know it from the extension.
Mm-hmm.
And we tell the format that we want it to be marked as strict version of Markdown, but with automatic identifiers. And this is how you can define your very own, very specific use flavor of Markdown. Whereas right now we're using the most strict version, but with auto identifiers and headers, which means you can link to them or style them in like external style sheets or so on, which again, Pypandoc also supports. And then we print the result just as a test. Um,
That would be it.
and
Wow.
this is what you would get when you convert it. You will get the exact same, but in a HTML form. And notable, except most of these all of these parameters can be found on like the upstream Pandoc guide, where they map one to one to what Pypandoc does. So the reason why we don't get a full document here is because we didn't tell it to, but that's again just one of the many other flags we can put into Pypandoc to tell it, hey, we want a standard and we want a full document, not just an HTML snippet. And hey, we want to include these images and these style sheets, or it even works on trusted input. Like if you, let's say you're making it with a CMS system and you want to utilize Pypandoc to convert between what the user is writing in Markdown and what the viewer sees, which is HTML. You can say, hey, we want to convert convert this text, but we want to sandbox it so they can't access files on our system or do something else with it. So sandboxed as in you can only access the images or style sheets that's predefined by the template, which again, all of these can be set in Pypandoc. And here's just some of the flavors that Pypandoc and Pandoc supports out of the box. All the major ones: Common Mark, the normal Markdown, PHP, GitHub's flavored Markdown, multi Markdown, and a bunch of extensions to customize them, which we saw on the previous slide. You can either do a plus sign to enable an extension, or even more cool, I think, is a minus sign to disable it. So you can say, okay, I want GitHub's flavored Markdown, but without this single irritating feature that I don't like personally. And that means that when you write your massive feces in Markdown, you can use it tailored to just how you like to write it. And you know that the end result is going to look beautiful.
This is awesome. If I could echo Learner0418, they said any format to other doc format is very, very versatile. I'm wondering also, like how they said, like the Word to PowerPoint, that must be difficult to work with. I'm thinking. Oh.
Yes. So basically, what Pypandoc does is Pypandoc verifies the files that you give it before it even tries to convert them. Say, hey, this you're telling me it should be a Word document, but this doesn't look like a Word document, and so on and so forth. And then we construct the underlying very, very long and convoluted command to Pandoc, and we send it to Pandoc, which can either be bundled into Pypandoc, so you don't even have to install it yourself, or you can provide your own and say, hey, Pandoc is over here. This specific version is over here. And we get like a result back, which again either is a file or an error or the converted text, all depending on what you use in Pypandoc. And all of that is then taken and converted into something that you can actually, try and accept. So you can like do sophisticated error handling. There's like full locking support where it will print the errors to the like standard Python logging module. And yeah,
That's awesome.
and as I remember there was a question about PDFs, so that's what I wanted to get to in the kind of like the demo, because I kind of knew this would come up because PDF is very popular. So yeah, as I've been here, it's like you can do PDFs, but with a LaTeX engine, but you need to get that from somewhere. And I personally had the same issue. Like I just want the smallest LaTeX engine that still works. So I found an open source one called Tiny Text or TX, which I wanted to use from Python. So I made Tiny Text or Tiny TX. Still not completely sure how you're supposed to pronounce that. But yeah, so Pypandoc and Tiny TX works perfectly in tandem to give you that full PDF support without you having to do anything else except install a new package. Yeah, and yeah, there's again over 50 formats that you can choose to convert in between. But yeah, kind of the middle ground, a middleman is Markdown. So you get from one format into Markdown, typically. And then you write something in Markdown and you convert it either back to the same format or to another format. But you can also just do HTML to Word or something similar. Markdown doesn't have to be involved. That's just the common format for editing. So you don't even have to leave your keyboard. Wow. And There's a little surprise is this slideshow that I prepared partly for the demo and also for my own personal notes was made just by writing my writing markdown and then just feeding it to Pypandoc and tell hey, convert this to a PowerPoint slideshow, please.
Wait, so you made this with Pypandoc?
Yes, I made this with Pypandoc and then I opened it in Microsoft PowerPoint
That's
and
crazy.
just click press like start DS show.
Wow. Okay, I'm impressed even more. I was already impressed because I was like, this project sounds like complex for the maintainer, but on the user side, it sounds so simple, right? Like you showed a couple of lines of code, and then you came up with like, oh, I actually used this. I
Yeah.
actually used Pandoc to build this.
Yes. Yes. Even though this is very simple, but I could have included images, I could have included videos and like all the things that um PowerPoint has available, I could have included by just writing Markdown and then telling Pypandoc to convert it. But oh well, I didn't need to. So
Awesome. We already had people. Wait, first of all, someone says she's a ninja. I guess to you, I don't know.
oh
Very practical. Yeah, super awesome. I know some people said they wanted to be able to contribute, so I put a link to. I can't post a link in the chat, y'all, because we've disabled that for GitHub. But I put a link on the screen. It says HTTPS and then colon slash slash github.com slash Jessica Tegner slash PyPanda PyPandoc. So like if you all wanted to contribute, that's the repository you should look for. I'm actually curious as you were talking. I was like, how do you keep up with the changes that Pandoc makes so that you can like have it convert over to PyPandoc? I don't know.
um yeah, so yeah, first of all, thank you everyone. Also just search for Pypandoc on Google and it comes up either on the package index or on GitHub. It's very easy to find. Um, and as how to keep up with it, right now I'm just subscribed to the Pandoc repository. Um, but I am working on a GitHub action that will automatically at least take it and build a new snapshot version. So like download the newest release of Pandoc and then use that to run all the testing because we have like 99% test coverage. Um, and basically make a new snapshot build because that's what it does anyway right now when we push anything to it, it just downloads like the latest version of Pandoc into like every GitHub runner under the sun and just runs all the testing and stuff. I'm working on automating fully, so I don't have to touch it, and it just runs on every like Pandoc Python version between like 3.6 and 3.11 on both Linux and Mac and Windows. And then again, conditionally, if it's just a normal push or pull request, it makes a snapshot build, or if it's a tagged commit, it makes a like official quote unquote release to the index. So that is what I'm working on automating. I don't know
Wow.
if that makes sense.
No, that made a lot of sense. I actually think that's like a really good use case of GitHub Actions because
Yes.
yeah, rather than like that's the whole point of GitHub Actions to automate things that are happening in your repository. And rather than you
Yes.
like double checking each time, okay, like here's what was changed, let me add that in. Like GitHub Actions should just grab the snapshot for you. That's
Yeah.
really smart. I'm looking
It grabs the snapshot and then it runs the test and then it gives me a detailed report of what broke, if anything. And then if nothing broke, it just makes an automatic latest test build, if you will, um, on like GitHub releases. And I love GitHub Actions. I automate everything. Even if people go to my GitHub repository or like my GitHub profile itself, that itself is automated by GitHub Actions. That has the latest like 10 things that I'm like either I've been in like either closed pull request or comment on an issue or so on and so forth. And that's also all done by GitHub Actions, just doing its automation magic, which I love.
Yeah, no, I noticed that actually when I asked like who wanted to be on Open Source Friday, and then you were like me. I went to your GitHub and I was like, oh, cool. Jessica put like a little automated thing is like last merge this commit to this repository. I also think that might be like a good tip for students or people looking for a job, whether you're like a traditional college student or like a boot camper. If you
Mm.
want people to see like why you should get hired and the work that you've been putting in, it might be a great idea for your readme to reflect, like for you to use a GitHub action in your readme to reflect the latest changes and commits that you did. That way it's easy for a recruiter or a hiring manager or whatever to be like, oh, okay, this is the work that they're currently doing.
Yes, because that's one of the earliest tip I probably got from the open source community in general is people said GitHub is the LinkedIn for developers. So your recruiter might look at your LinkedIn, but the technical manager that's going to interview you, if he has the option between LinkedIn and GitHub, you bet he'll probably 9 out of 10 times go to GitHub. And I know this because this is one of the first things that people like recruiters from when I've been like at interviews at like Microsoft or talks at Microsoft in the past or Uber is like that's one of the first things they tell me is like, wow, you're doing a lot of GitHub stuff, aren't you? I was like, yeah.
That is very, very awesome. Actually, somebody asked if they could see it. Are you okay if I share the screen of it, or should I just put the link?
What are we sharing?
They wanted to see your README of like the automated things that you put in.
Oh
Or
yeah, like if I mean everyone can see it, so yeah, you can share your screen and go to the GitHub Actions or GitHub, like my GitHub, and go to the Actions tab.
okay, gonna do that in a quick second. Chrome tab. I know someone just told me put the link in the chat, but y'all, it will come out as asterisks because GitHub limited that to reduce like spam or people getting phished and stuff like that. So I can only put the link on the video. Sorry, y'all. All right, so I'm at your README, and just so everyone can see, here's like your recent activity where you did like the different merges and closed and all that. So this is all automated, y'all. And then I think Jessica said go to the Actions tab.
Yeah, like go to Pypandoc and then go to the Actions tab.
Oh, gotcha. Hold on. Pypandoc Actions.
All
All
right.
right.
You can just, and then here we have all the latest runs that's completed. And you can just, if you go to the latest one.
Yeah. It's docs fix typo.
Yeah, that was actually a pull request I got after starting in the GitHub Accelerator program because that's a thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, if we see there's a long graph of all these test runners, well, running, running on a matrix of OSs and Python builds, and then if all of them are successful, it goes on to the building stage where it actually packages both Pypandoc and Pypandoc binary, which Pypandoc is just the Python code, no Pypandoc. And Pypandoc binary is with an included Pandoc. They're like they're two separate registered projects on the package index, but they're just the same here because it shares the same code base. It's just the dependency of Pandoc that's bootstrapped in. And then all depending on if we are on the master branch or the main branch, and if this commit that has been pushed has a tag of a specific like pattern, like v1 like digit, like it either builds a snapshot for just the latest. It's what's called publish a latest, which ran in this instance because it wasn't a tag commit. But if it is a tag commit, that it will skip the publish latest and it will do publish like release, and it will build It will take the build snapshots from the builder step, and it will publish them to the package index.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I know it was like completely off script, but I thought it could be helpful to folks.
Yes, I definitely, again, I have studied, I also almost want to say I've studied GitHub Actions intensively because, and I'm not just saying this because I'm with you, but generally I have used other tools where it's like I need to go to 3 different websites, one for Mac, one for Windows, one for Linux, to just see the same results. And if something breaks, but here I can just put it all under one roof. I can put the code, especially like all the OSs could ever want is in GitHub Actions. I don't have to use 2 or 3 different separate CI providers. I can just do all of it from one page using one config file, which is really, really awesome.
No, I relate with you. And I know this is gonna, just like you said, not because you're talking to me, it's gonna sound like I'm just saying this because I work at GitHub. But prior prior to working at GitHub, I was like, oh, okay, this is a place that you store code. That's cool. And then they came out with GitHub Actions, and I was like,
Yes.
this changes my entire life.
It's just like I was like, is it just gonna be another copy of what we've seen already? And then I looked at the like how simple the config files were. I was like, this is I need to move Pypandoc away from what it had because it worked, but it was like when I had to change, like when as a great example is like when a new Python version came out, and I want to test Pypandoc on the latest version. I had to change like 3 or 4 different config files, multiple lines in each. But here I just go to the one line that defines the matrix, and I just say, hey, I also want Python 3.12 when that comes out. And then when I commit it, it just goes, okay.
Yeah.
And then it spins up both for Windows and Linux and Mac as I've specified, and all the existing versions and also the new version I added. And it's just one file, one line, and then it just works. It's so simple. It just works. And I love when stuff just works.
Yes, me too. And it feels magical, even though it's not. We know there's stuff going on behind the scenes, but it feels like so easy, the developer experience. I wanted to, I guess, highlight comments that we saw. Someone was
Yes.
just talking about how they said PyTiny Text is so cool. They said they'd love to work on this. Amazing, super excited. I guess somebody wrote this to in response to when you were talking about like working on open source as a student. They said, I mean, learn, earn, and return. I guess that's something they know, like a idiom. I don't know.
That sounds like an idiom. But yeah, on the whole, like both of Pypandoc, which is kind of mature at this point. Um, I only really touch it when stuff breaks or if people come with feature requests because it's pretty stable as is. Um, After I did all the modernization, but Tiny Text is definitely where I want to improve it because right now it's just hey, I can download the thing from Tiny Text and use it in Python, but I want to do so much more with it. I just never came back to it.
That makes a lot of sense. And I guess
Well,
sometimes, oh, what?
I was just gonna say all of this to say like contributions always welcome, both code and ideas and feature requests and issues, and all contributions are very welcome on
Yeah,
both projects.
definitely, y'all come help with improving or adding more functionality for PyTiny Text with PyPandoc. And I already put the repo title up as well. And someone said, let me see if I just want to read this just to make sure. I don't know if this is relevant, so never mind. But I guess somebody was asking your thoughts on what's the best strategy to be a lifetime learner as a developer.
A lifetime learner.
Yeah, I don't know.
Um, so lifetime learner, like someone that's always learning, I guess.
Yeah,
Hmm. That's a very good question. I want to say figure out how you learn the best.
yeah,
For me and the few people I've had the privilege of explaining code to, make a project. That's what I did.
Mm.
You might learn better from videos, you might learn better from reading, but all of that, like find the way that like you absorb information the best and then do something with that. Because if you don't do something with it, you're going to forget it when you wake up the next day.
I love that advice. That's like really great advice. I agree. And like I think as adults, or like as we get out of like high school and middle school, it's up to us to figure out like how do we best absorb information? How does it start clicking for us? And then I like what you said about like applying it later, actually using it in a project, because it's so easy to get away from us, or for us to
Mm.
like forget afterwards. Somebody named Chris Renshaw asked, how did you learn GitHub Actions? They've tried using it, but they're really struggling with it. Are there any tips on like maybe tools you use that one?
So, so very quick to get back to the whole learning thing first, and then we can go in and nerd out about GitHub Actions. So learning the thing, apply it as soon as possible, preferably immediately. Sit with the like, as I was saying, the first thing I made in Python was a calculator. Sit
Mhm.
with the Python thingy, sit with the Python book, or all the various like tutorials, and then just apply it immediately. That's what like just apply it as soon as possible, because the later that goes between you absorbing the information and you applying it, the less the higher chance there'll be of you forgetting it again and have to do it all over again from the start. So it's also about like time optimization, really, to learn it correctly the first time, basically, which is possible. Um, but yeah, GitHub Actions. We love it. We love GitHub Actions. I love GitHub Actions.
I do too.
Um, so I could give the very easy answer of ChatGPT, but ChatGPT wasn't around when I did learn GitHub Actions. Um, I was I was very used to how the other providers did it, so I had a little preamp to it in the sense that I knew the YAML syntax that all the config files used. Um, so that helped like 5%. The last bit was figuring out what I want to automate. Do all the steps manually, and then looking through the GitHub documentation and especially the examples, and doing that, because GitHub, either like as a first party or third party developer, has made actions that do anything, because you can tell it, okay, I want to install Python and install my dependencies. Well, installing Python, they have the set up Python like action you can import into your own and just do it that way. You don't have like, it's very simple syntax, but I think the best would be examples um, from the docs, and then also Stack Overflow. Just
Yeah,
yeah,
I
that
agree. I agree. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, like because again, GitHub Actions very popular. You're bound to. That's also another thing I've realized is like 99% of what I do, someone else has already. Maybe they're not doing the exact same thing as I did, but they have needed this specific advice, so they've probably done the same thing that I'm doing, just in a different context. There's probably info about it if you just Google it. That's like
Yeah. I
Googling.
I agree, because I think what you said of like figuring out what you want to automate, because I think that's how I first learned GitHub Actions. My job gave me a task. I never used GitHub Actions before, but they're like, we want to automate this thing. And then, like you said, the GitHub Marketplace has a ton of actions already built out. As of last November, which I think it's changed now, there's 14,000 actions. So probably whatever you're thinking of automating, it already exists. You can just like probably copy and paste that workflow in and figure out how. Like what I did is I copied the workflow, and then I was like, oh, okay, that's how they built out the action, and here's how it is incorporated into the workflow. And then in the future, I had my own things I wanted to automate, and I like wrote an action from scratch. And then also somebody in the chat, learner0418, said that GitHub Skills is actually a good way to learn GitHub Actions. And I just put the link here. It's github.com/skills. They have a ton of different like lessons, I get interactive labs of like how do you use different tools in GitHub, including GitHub Actions.
Mhm.
We have 45 minutes left, but I wanted to pivot into like more of your journey and stuff like that. I know even before we went live, we had a lot of like awesome conversations, so I don't want to like take away from that. Um
Mhm.
the first is like what challenges have you experience encountered as a maintainer or even as a student and maintainer? Yeah.
The list is very, very long. Um, there's all from, I'm going to start very specific and then try to go out to a broader, probably more relatable um,
Okay.
kind of angle. So the very specific ones are documentations that are only visual, because I made tools for the blind visual impaired because I am fully blind myself.
Yeah.
So when I try to use a library and it's like, in do this, and then they're like image, fuck.
You're like, what
It's
is
like,
it?
damn it. It's like,
Sorry.
what am I supposed to do? Um, or it's like, many of the times it's like I have filled out an issue where I followed their template with like the exact steps and output, and they still insist, "Hey, can you send me a screenshot?" It's like, yes, I could. It's going to be like a lot of work for me to hide like details I don't want you to see and don't want to be public on the internet. But it's like I showed you everything you should need. Like I showed you the input and the output and expected result, and it's like the world, even in coding, which you would think is, well, code is all text, right? Is
Yeah.
very visual. Being on like a talk recently where they said, um, get things that are designed well. Designed well stuff is good. I was like, well, I don't know how to design stuff. Then they're like, okay, find a designer that can do it for you. Well, that's fine, but I can't verify if this
It's
aligns
good.
with what image I have in my head.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. Um, Again, I could this into a long rant about accessibility, but
But
I'm
I
not.
love these. I love these so far because like that's a good point. I didn't even realize. I also think I sent you an image in Slack, so I apologize.
Yes, I think you did. Yeah, you sent me an image of like your calendar for today or something
Yeah.
like that.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize. I didn't know you were fully blind. But like that's a good point. Like well a lot of us are like very visual, right? And then it creates this like this friction or this barrier for like people who may
Mhm.
not be able to visualize things. So it's like how do you meet that
And and here's like what makes it even more frustrating is all the tools to make it accessible for people that can't see are there. They're just
yeah,
not being utilized.
yeah, yeah,
And that's what makes it like go from slightly annoying to kind of infuriating,
yeah.
sometimes, because all the tools are there. They just either don't know about them or don't care about them. Um, which, you know, that's a thing. But yeah, that's the virtual. That's the whole virtual thing. Then there's also going to conferences, um, making it easy for people that can't drive to get to the conference. I'm not even talking necessarily about people with disabilities, just people that don't have a car.
Yeah. That's a fair point.
Um, don't put it in the middle of nowhere where there's no buses or trains or something that's nearby. That's really inconvenient, not just for people with disabilities. Like many of the like things we take for granted was made initially because of people with disability wanted something, like, except as an example, the curves you see at sidewalks. Do you know why they were originally invented?
No, tell me.
So originally they were invented so people with wheelchairs could easily, cross the street, right?
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
But you know who else they ended up benefiting?
I guess not like regular, not regular pedestrian people that walk. I don't know what's the word.
Well, so they obviously they benefited the people in wheelchairs.
Yeah.
They also benefited people with strollers, with
Oh, I see
suitcases.
what you're saying. Yeah,
Like
gotcha.
it benefited people that didn't have a disability necessarily, but they had other reasons why that thing was a good idea.
I see what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Like you're saying even the thing, sorry, at first I was like, I don't know what you mean, but even the things that people asked for accessibility reasons ended up benefiting able-bodied people, because able-bodied people have different things, like you just said, like they have a baby that they need to take, and I have pushed the stroller, and it's hard to push it up when there's like no slope on a
Yes.
sidewalk, so I completely understand that. That's a really good point I didn't think about. And I do think, I don't know, I agree with you in terms of like in the tech industry. I don't know if it's like an ignorance thing or a lack of education thing, but we don't always use the accessibility tools that are given to us.
Oh no, it's also because many places in tech like it moves so fast and accessibility is kind of an afterthought, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Um
But we need to make it like it needs to be part of everything. Like everyone's always pushing testing. Like that needs to be part of the software development life cycle. Like is this what component that you built or whatever
mm,
accessible as well?
yeah, because again there's like especially for the web there's like automated tools at this point that can help with accessibility testing specifically. For the desktops there's like free screen readers, free like magnifiers, stuff you can do that's totally free. The only thing it obviously costs is time, and it's much easier to build something that's accessible from the start than it is to try to kind of shoehorn it in there after an afterthought. It takes much more time because you have to rewrite a lot of things anyway.
Definitely. And then I was also thinking that maybe sometimes people are like, oh, well, like this doesn't apply to me. But eventually, as we all grow older, our vision starts to decrease. So eventually, we are going to probably need screen readers or magnifiers and stuff like that. So in the end, you are benefiting yourself and future and
Mm.
or the future self.
Yeah, and again, I'm gonna come with probably a very shocking number. Um, it's estimated that across the world, around a little under 1 billion people live with with something less than 20/20 vision.
A
That's a lot
billion?
of people.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people. Like we're talking like a lot of 100 million, if not like up to 1 billion. I haven't seen like the latest numbers, but we're talking like anywhere from fully blind to legally blind to like anyone that just doesn't live with 20/20 vision. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, that's mad people. Like that's crazy. I'll highlight some stuff, some comments. Somebody said cool to
Yes.
learn here. Like I completely agree. Like I didn't even think about the sidewalk thing before. Someone said using alt text at least as the docs maintainers is important. Someone said accessibility and inclusivity matters. That's awesome. And they said one of my reasons to get into tech was accessibility as well.
Yes.
Mm, that's awesome.
Um, yeah. So again, there's a lot of times I get the chance to speak about accessibility, and I love talking about it because it benefits me directly and a lot of other people. But especially when I talk to geeky people, I
Mm,
love talking about automation and backend, and that's why I like well GitHub Actions have kind of become my little baby tech child of my own. I love talking about it. Every time one of my testers come to me and ask me something, I'll give them a 30-minute rant on GitHub Actions and why it is why you should just use it. And I don't know. I've been thinking about doing everything from like maybe like talks or tutorials or something about it, because yeah, I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on making it do what you want in simple ways. I don't know.
Yeah, you definitely should. I think there's a mix of people who use GitHub Actions or want to use GitHub Actions. At least I found there's people who are like, I want to use it, but I'm not sure where to start. Or there's people that are like, I've used it to some extent, but I don't know how to like improve upon it, like how to make it faster and stuff like that. So I definitely think those type of conversations would be much welcomed at conferences, and then also on inclusivity, because that's something we need to wake our industry up to more.
Yes, I totally agree on both accounts.
Yeah. All right. With about 5 more minutes left, I guess we already did. We talked about like what are your thoughts in improving? Well, did we? Do you feel like you covered your thoughts on improving diversity and inclusion in open source, or did you want to dive more into that?
Um, um, I want to kind of just highlight an experience I had.
Yeah.
Um, whereas, and this is all like people can see pictures and stuff from it on my Twitter if they want to. I last year got invited to Uber as a participant for the She Plus Plus event, which was a
Cool.
event for girls in tech. But this can be applied for just literally any quote unquote minority group, any specific scope. But it was nice seeing a company not just doing it for the PR or for the public like clout they would get, but for actually because they realized that when you get people that are not in the stereotypical like range, you get as diverse ideas. Like there's a direct correlation between having on the like professional side having a diverse workforce and also having a more diverse and innovative product
Yeah.
on that side. And that also goes again for conferences. If the more diverse of a talk like panel you have or list of speakers you have, the more diverse the talks are going to be. It's not just going to be the same story of like the same almost the same story. It's going to be very the more diverse and more inclusive you are in a conference, the
Yeah.
more diverse the stories that your participants um, or the audience are going to hear will be that much that range will be much bigger, which also includes in totally like goes back and just benefits everyone, benefits the audience because they get a great story, maybe something they had never thought about. And it benefits the speaker because everyone gets a chance to have a voice. And benefits, the company or the like conference holders because people, both the speaker will have a fantastic experience and especially the audience will say, wow, these people from this conference had such a fantastic story. So it just benefits everyone all around. There's just good things all around.
Yeah, totally. Someone in the comments agrees with you. They said you get fresher perspectives for all, and I completely agree because sometimes if you end up hiring all these similar types of people, like they come from the same area, they're all the same gender, they all have very similar experiences, they're going to build a product or feature that's limited to that perspective. But if you bring
Yes.
in other people, they're like, "Wait, did you think about this? How this would affect this type of person?" And you're like, "Oh wait, like um I need to like edit that or resolve
Mm.
that for that." Yeah.
Yeah, and also the whole. I've seen a couple of conferences because I've been looking around for places to start doing public speaking, where they market themselves as being like diverse and inclusive on the front, which it's it's good, but that's going to come naturally if you just actually do it because you want to, and not just because you want the badge, the social badge of, hey, look at us, we're inclusive. If you actually are, people, like, it's going to spread both that at
Yes.
this conference there's all these like cool stories and cool people, and then people is going to know your company or your product or your conference as this is the conference where all the people of all the backgrounds come to. So the PR will kind of come after,
Yeah.
and it will be much more powerful than if you say it up front, hey, we are inclusive and diverse, but when it actually comes to it, it's still a 90-10 split or
Yeah.
more.
I agree with you. There are a lot of conferences and companies just because they have one white woman speaking or one black man, they're like, we are diverse and inclusive. And that there's one conference and I seen in the comment, I spoke at this conference. I thought it was actually a good example of being more inclusive. They had a sign language interpreter there at React Miami. That way, like, people who are tuning in, but they need ASL to be able to understand what's going on. Like, I thought
Mhm.
that was awesome. That was a good example. We reached the hour mark. I didn't even
Yeah.
realize how fast we reached it, but I just
No, I've loved this.
me too. This was a great conversation. I
Yeah.
think everybody's just like soaking up the knowledge from you because you have a lot of like wisdom, even though you're like a student or whatever,
Yeah.
But I just wanted to wrap up with like,
Um,
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, yeah, if you want, you can put my website on the screen if people want to follow what I do, and maybe again advise me on like good like conferences to get to. Again, I'm in Denmark. All of the cool conferences seem to be like all the people I want to meet is in America, so that's a thing. But yeah, people are so I like want to hear what I have to say. I want to follow my journey and come along for the ride. Then they could check out my website.
Yes, definitely. And maybe I'll share a couple of conferences with you because so far I've been going to like at least one conference a month. So I'll try to look out for inclusive ones to send towards you. I did want to, if you still have time, I have like the non-technical questions where I ask people, do
Oh
I
yeah, I have all the time in the world.
awesome. Okay. My first question is, what is the first programming language you learned?
The first programming language I learned was probably a split between Java and PHP. For Java for making Minecraft server plugins,
Yeah.
and PHP for making a website for said Minecraft server.
I love it. And this is when I think on your website, you said you were like 10 or 12 years old or something when you learned to code.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Wow. Impressive.
And I'm 23 now for comparison. That's again public info. So yeah, I've been doing tech stuff for 10, 13 years now.
Wow. That's a
So
long.
on the paper I'm a student, but I feel in my humble opinion like I picked up a few good practices over the years.
Yeah, you're more like senior developer rather than like and then if money wasn't an issue, how would you ideally spend your time, whether it's job wise or not job wise? Like, I don't know.
I would probably travel. I would travel around the world speaking at all the cool conferences that I can't go to right now because I either am supposed to pretend like I'm studying or do an internship, or again, all of these I'm very grateful for, but I would love to just see, oh, there's just been PyCon in somewhere in America. Let me just go over there because I want to be in PyCon. I don't care where it is in the world. I just want to go to all the conferences. So
Yeah.
yeah, if money wasn't an issue, both travel to see all my friends and go to conferences both as a participant and as a speaker, and also maybe as a what's it called, like a like
Organize?
maintainer,
Oh,
contributor, maintainer of the conference.
Awesome. That would be I'm excited to see you at conferences. I think you would be amazing. And I get it. You're like, I'm ahead of the curve at the school thing. Like, let's hurry this up so I can start speaking at conferences. Somebody in the comments said that's awesome. I wish I started that young in reference to you coding since you were 10. Um what's
Mm.
your dream open source project that you would like to create one day? I don't know if it's Pypandoc or you have a different one in mind.
Um, hmm, my dream open source project. There's just I have so many answers. Um, I want to say like on the more fluffy side, definitely something with with more community in it because Pypandoc is a very maintainer heavy thing where there's not a lot of community. So I think probably um like an updater framework. I've always again something that automates something. So updater frameworks. I've already done one of those.
Yeah.
I want to do another one in another language. But either a backend stuff that automates something or a an updater framework that automates something or something that automates something that people like and can we can build in community around. That'd be cool.
That's awesome, especially since you're getting really into or getting really passionate about automation lately. Okay, next question is how do you say the word GIF? Do you say GIF or GIF?
Jeff, you said Jeff.
You say GIF, you said?
Yeah.
Yes. Another GIF
Get
person.
you did say GIF. That sounds so speaking as someone that uses a like robotic voice to read to her all the time, that sounds so text to speak ish.
Yeah, exactly. And then my last question is what's your favorite Beyonce song? But if you don't like Beyonce, what's your favorite song?
See, it switches all the time. But usually like a lot of the fun like AI songs are really fun now. But if I had to like pick actual music that I listen to, like as an example by coding, it'd be like punk rock slash rock. So Halsey, Machine Gun Kelly. I'm really more into artists than more than specific songs. So yeah, Halsey, Machine Gun Kelly, All Time Low, stuff like
Ooh,
that. Like very punk rock esque, um, punk rock slash like rocky modern stuff.
I like that. Honestly, like 15-year-old me was only listening to All Time Low and other similar bands. So yeah, I'm here for that. All right. So we reached the end. I want to remind people first off, I want to say thank you to Jessica for like providing your time and then also providing all this wisdom around accessibility. Like my knowledge on it is quite limited and I'm trying to learn more. So I really appreciated this conversation in general because I'm like, wow, like I'm learning so much. Also, just saying yes to doing this pretty last minute. I appreciate that, and then also appreciate the people who viewed this Twitch stream and they continue to be super engaged and ask questions and stuff like that. I want to remind y'all to check out. Here's a couple of links that we talked about, jessicategner.com. That's Jessica's website. If you want to book her for conferences and other things, as you can see, she's experienced. She has a lot of great thoughts on automation and inclusivity. And
And a lot of good things are coming very soon in the whole talks area. One of an example, this is coming. Um, but yeah, like if you want to also again follow my email lists on the front page, if you want to come along with my journey and see where in the world I'm stopping next, maybe maybe it's your local conference. Who knows?
yeah,
I've always wanted to say that.
I love that. Nah, your future of like conference speaking, I can tell it's bright. You're about to be like a star. And then
Oh, thank you.
of course, and then of course, like go if you wanted to contribute. There's the link to contribute, github.com/Jessica Tegner/PyPandoc. If you wanted to add more, I know I think you mentioned you wanted to add more functionality for dang, I forgot.
Tiny text,
Tiny,
tiny text.
tiny text, and
You
then
can find it on the PyPandocs repository. It's also on like my if you just go to my GitHub profile, but it's linked from the Pypandoc repository as well.
Perfect. And then for folks that wanted to learn more about GitHub Actions because they were excited about how much Jessica was geeking out about them, I will suggest github.com/skills. It does have like an interactive lab for you. Is there any last thing you wanted to say before I close us out?
Yeah, if you're passionate about either automation or like inclusivity and accessibility, come talk to me. I can talk to you about it for way too long. Yeah, and I hope to hear from a lot of you at some point, or if not, then speak. Have your conferences. I would love to have someone come up say, "Hey, I saw you the first time on GitHub's Twitch/YouTube channel." That I would love that. That'd be really fun. Yeah, and thanks so much for having me. I loved it. Who knows? Maybe I can come back in 5 years and we can have a recap.
Oh, of course. I mean, you can come back in 1 year, like whatever. Like if you have updates or you just want to chat, I'm down. All right. Thank you, everybody. And bye.
Bye, everyone.